everyone, I hope you are doing well. Today is going to be another Halloween series video. This one is called Unreturned Love Killed on Halloween. Let's get into it because I know nothing. I stopped reading ahead. It's probably a good thing. I only want to hear these horrible stories once. And then I have to listen to them again when I'm editing. So I have to listen to them multiple times anyways. So let's get into it. The crime. Joan Rabel, I think it's Rabel, and Goldine Heiser sat in a parked car outside the Fabiano home. They were watching, waiting for the lights to go out so they could make their move. As the lights turned off throughout the house, then lastly in the master bedroom, Rabel told Heiser, "All right, go do it." Heiser got out of the car dressed in jeans, a khaki coat, red gloves, and heavy makeup that she covered up with a domino mask. The domino mask. Oh, I might have to look that up now. I'll do that later. She walked straight to the Fabiano door and rang the bell. Peter and Betty Fabiano had already gotten into bed. When they heard the doorbell, Peter got up to answer, thinking it was a trick-or-treater. "It's a little late for this, isn't it?" he asked as he opened the door. "No." That is all Pizer said as she raised a brown bag. Both of her hands were holding something inside the bag, out of sight of Peter. She pulled the trigger, and it was clear what she was holding. The sound of the bullet being fired rang through the street. The bag exploded, and Peter fell where he stood in the doorway. Pizer didn't wait to see if Peter was dead or if anyone had seen her. She ran back to the car where Rabel was waiting. As Pizer got in, Rabel leaned over and kissed her, saying thank you. There's a lot going on already. The two women left and quickly burned their clothes in case they contained any trace evidence. Afterwards, they returned the getaway car to the friend they had borrowed it from earlier that day. What the fuck, dude? I'm gonna borrow my friend's car and go commit a murder, and I'm gonna take it fucker back. What's wrong with people? I just don't understand. I just don't understand. When the two women had completed their mission, Rabel said to Pizer, "Forget you ever knew me." Then they went their separate ways. The next day, Pizer realized that she still had the murder weapon, a Smith & Wesson .38, and she had no idea what to do with it. So she went to a downtown LA department store. There she rented a locker and left the gun. Investigation begins. Betty had heard the shot go off and ran downstairs to check on her husband, Peter. She found him lying on the floor unconscious. He had been shot once. The bullet entered his chest just below his heart. Peter was rushed by ambulance to a nearby hospital, but he never regained consciousness. Betty had to be sedated for days after the shooting, unable to help the police in their search. Finally, after Betty was able to compose herself, she spoke with the police. She told them that she heard two voices coming from downstairs, a man and someone that sounded like a man pretending to be a woman. The first thought was that this was a gang shooting. LA was suffering from gang problems even back in the 50s. Peter had been charged years before with bookmaking in the 40s before he moved to California. But since being in the Sunshine State, he had opened a string of hair salons and had stayed clean, so they didn't think his murder was gang-related after all. When questioned about who would want to harm her husband, Betty said she could only think of one person, Joan Rabel. Betty said that Rabel was a family friend. She didn't elaborate at first about her and Rabel's relationship. As the weeks went by and the police ran out of questions to ask, it started to look like it might go cold. Then they caught a break. A gun had been found in a downtown department store, and after a ballistics test, it matched the bullet fired into Peter Fabiano. They burned their damn clothes. They got rid of almost everything. What? Throw the gun in the river. Throw it in a river far away. Never be found. In fact, I watch people that do that. Oh, what the fuck's it called? They take a magnet and they go fishing with the magnet, and they go find all kinds of shit in rivers and lakes and shit. It's pretty cool. They find some really fucking cool shit. They found saves and all kinds of shit. A boat, all kinds of shit. So anyways, got so sidetracked here. Let's get back into it. Unlikely suspect. A search of the weapon showed it was registered to a Goldine Pizer, a lab assistant at the Children's Hospital, and no one that had even been on the police's radar in connection to the Fabianos. On November 12th, Pizer was arrested. In the interrogation room, she confessed to everything, telling police that it was all Rabel's idea. Rabel had coerced her into killing Peter. She didn't even know the man. Police had interviewed Rabel several times, but she claimed to know nothing about the murder. Now they got an arrest warrant, and Rabel got a lawyer. That's how it always goes. They always lawyer up, man. Meanwhile, Pizer was telling everything. She told me that Mr. Fabiano was a vile, evil man. A man who destroyed everything around him, Pizer told authorities. She told me that he mistreated his wife and that he was dealing narcotics. What do you want, Zeus? I know, it's so many horrible stories. You come to lighten the mood, didn't you? Zeusy, you come to lighten the mood in here because it's horrible, horrible stories. No, this isn't my baby. The murder weapon, she said, had been bought with money Rabel had given her. Pizer told her how they had been planning the murder for weeks. The two of them had driven by the Fabianos' home before, and Rabel had pointed out Peter to her, so she would recognize him when the time came. So, how did this happen? Peter and Betty Fabiano had met in the late 40s in New York. Peter had gotten out of the Marines and was driving a truck, and Betty was a pretty divorcee with 2 children. They married. They moved to Los Angeles in 1956, where they opened 2 beauty salons. Peter hired Joan Rabel to work in one of the shops, and this is how she came into their lives. Even as the Fabianos' life looked to be coming together, their marriage was falling apart. Betty needed space and moved out of the family home and went to stay with Rabel. At the time, police closest saw that the 2 women were romantically involved and called it abnormal. LA has always been a progressive city, but this was the late 50s, and progressiveness only went so far. After a while, Betty decided she wanted to work on her marriage and left Rabel to return to Peter in her life. Peter had found out about the relationship, and those closest to him said he had felt threatened by it. Peter was threatened so much that when he and Betty talked about working on their marriage, she vowed never to have contact with Rabel again. Soon after Betty went back to Peter, Rabel realized that her girlfriend was serious about fixing her marriage. Knowing she had lost Betty, Rabel found Pizer and started selling her on how horrible of a man Peter Fabiano was and that he had to die. Rabel never elaborated on why she wanted Peter dead. Was it because she wanted to punish Betty? Or did she think with Peter gone, Betty would come back to her? Going to trial. Before their trial started in December, both women had to meet with 3 psychiatrists. The court seemed to believe that their choice of sexual partners might have made them unfit to stand trial. Oh, this is the 50s. Pizer was just as open with the psychiatrist as she had been with the police. I had no motive, personally. Whatever motive I had was to please Joan. I was always easily influenced. I have been impressionable and always trusting. The psychiatrist had met with Pizer, wrote this in his notes. The only thought she had was that she had saved her friend Joan Rabel from an evil person. When their trial started, both Pizer and Rabel pleaded not guilty. Pizer because of insanity. Pizer took the stand in her defense and openly cried when she described to the jury what she had done that Halloween night. People were shocked that Rabel was all smiles during the trial. It appeared that she thought the whole thing was a production and everyone was there to see her. Initially, they had both charged with first-degree murder, but it was reduced to second-degree murder through a plea deal. Each woman was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Both women were eventually released. These fucking bitches were released? And they only got 5 years. Oh, 5 years to life in prison. But how long did they, ugh, too many questions, guys. Oh, there's more to the story. Oh, thank God. Thought that was the end. This murder was so much more than just a woman pulling the trigger on a man. There was a marriage and an affair, both fighting to win. I feel there was manipulation by more than one of the parties, and it led directly to the death that Halloween night. I also think mental issues were going on, though they had nothing to do with sexuality. I think the root of the problem was a universal one. When people need to be loved so badly, they'll do anything to attain it. The lack of love causes a lot of problems in the world. This story is just one example. And that's the end of that one. Really glad there was more to it. I was like, oh, they never did say how long they were in there for. I'll find out and I'll put it in the video later. It's how it always goes. So, anyways, on that note, if you guys liked my video, give me a thumbs up if you'd like to see more videos. Not too many more of this type, though. We're counting down. I think there's like 2 weeks left, and then we're done. But if you guys want to see more videos of mine, please subscribe. Check out the other videos. I like to do the ghost paranormal videos. I like them ones. I'm on a mission. I'm on a mission. But, as always, you guys have a fabulous day. And thank you so much for watching.